Hello mouses! Well, today the Wheel of Thursday is spun round and landed on answer a question from a viewer. So what we're doing today is we're discussing how to frame comics. Now, if you're doing a webcomic, one of the most important things you can do is lay it out in a way that the viewer finds both interesting and easy to read. And this always depends on the type of comic you're doing. Now, if you're doing a newspaper comic, what you're going to do is put all of your frames into a line, whether it's across or, in Japanese style, vertical, whatever. But they're all one after the other, so that's an easy progression for the reader to read. And that's pretty straightforward, but if you're doing a more complex layout, what you're going to do is decide what sort of layout really helps tell this story. So, for example, you're doing a full-page comic, like a comic book or a long-form web comic or something like that, then perhaps what would be very good for you in a dramatic thing is to have build up, dramatic frame, and then a couple along the bottom as an aftershock thing. And that can be, is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's a giant bird plane, and it's attacking Tokyo. And that's the big reveal in the middle, and it's the giant bird plane attacking Tokyo. Whatever you're doing. What you have to do first of all is look at your script. I'm hoping you have a script. If you haven't, we're going to cover that in another episode. Then you get your script, you look at it and think, right, we've got this build up here, and this builds tension, that builds character, and then we have this event, and that's the aftermath, and then the hero comes in and does this. So you decide from that, okay, I'm going to have a small panel here where all the events in this first part do that, it builds character. And then in this one, it builds tension. And that's going to be the next bit. It's a bit longer for that one because it builds tension. That kind of effect. And then the event, it's a big panel. But I've decided that for the best effect, that should actually be a whole page thing with all of the other panels sat on top of it. Now that's a good one. It takes a lot longer to draw because in order to get the background looking right behind the frames, you've got to effectively sketch everything and then put the other frames over the top. So there's bits that you're not going to draw, but you've got to sketch it anyway to get the bits around it to work properly. And then your last few will have a small panel down here, which is the after effect, and people going, ah, or whatever, and then implanted big, so it's like double the size of the other smaller ones, and it's a long one. It's the hero appears, da, 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 that kind of thing, and that looks good. So that's an example of different frame layout. You can't really get away with that in a newspaper style comic because the space is so limited. So instead we have, like on All Over the House here, just build up, joke. And that's what is normally used for a 3-panel comic. Sometimes you get 4 panels instead of 3, that's fine. Then you can have build up, joke, or build up, joke, or whatever. However you want to do it, it's up to you. But the effect is pretty much the same. You'll usually have 3 or 4 standard size panels. You could have 1 and then a long one, or 2 long ones, or whatever. But whatever you do it like that. So how do you build these frames? Well, it's very simple. That crack you heard was me cracking my finger. That's actually, ow. But the way you build a frame is fairly standard in any case. Just go into your graphics program. I'm using Photoshop here, and we just draw a rectangle, or whatever shape you want your frame. But for a standard thing, we're going to use rectangle. So you draw your rectangle. I'm going to fill it black because that way I get a nice black rectangle. And then select a smaller amount inside the rectangle. Try and get the same amount of pixels on either side and at the top and bottom so that you get a decent thickness and it's uniform all around. And then delete that part of the rectangle. Lo and behold, you have a frame. It's a very simple process. Then you can duplicate it and you get another frame if you want, so that you can line yours up like a newspaper, or you could just draw each frame in that process. And that's it. That's basically how you frame. What you would do from there is you'd either sketch your comic into it, or if you've already drawn your sketch and you've already basically sketched out your rectangles, draw your rectangles as best you can around your sketch. Always remember to use a different layer, of course, because otherwise there's going to be a problem later on. But that's the basic way you do it. So that's it. If you have any questions on that, please feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll try and answer them as well. And until next time, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching a video, and I'll see you tomorrow.